You're a hard worker, Andy, and a clever fellow. I wish you well.
Mr. Barrow!
They wanted to say goodbye, and Anna told me when you were leaving.
You've just caught me, my lady.
We all kind of knew Downton Abbey 3 would feel like a new dawn for the series, but this one might just be the most emotional chapter yet. Here's what we've gathered so far about Downton Abbey, the grand finale, and it sounds truly sensational. Fans have been counting down the days to this final installment of the beloved franchise. Earlier this year, we got confirmation that the story will be deeply moving, and now a brand new trailer has dropped, giving us some heart-tugging glimpses of what's to come. The film takes us into the 1930s, following the Crawley family and their loyal household staff as they navigate yet another big shift in their lives. This time, though, there's a very real and emotional twist. With the passing of Dame Maggie Smith in real life, her iconic character, the Dowager Countess Violet Crawley, will also be laid to rest. Executive producer Gareth Neame has already said that Violet's death will profoundly affect the rest of the characters, making this easily the most emotional film in the series. Universal summed it up perfectly. This is a story about the Crawleys having to embrace change and welcome a new chapter. And as the trailer poignantly says, it's almost time to bid farewell. So when does it hit theaters? How does it end? Who's coming back? Keep watching for everything we know about the release date and more details from this touching final goodbye to Downton. First, the good news is most of your favorite characters are back. Julian Fellowes, the creator of the show, once said that the hardest part of making these films is getting everyone together because the cast is now spread across the world. Some are in Hollywood, others on Broadway doing plays or working on different series, but luckily they managed to pull it off again for this grand finale. So who's returning? You'll see Hugh Bonneville as Lord Grantham, Elizabeth McGovern as Lady Grantham, Michelle Dockery as Lady Mary, and Laura Carmichael as Lady Edith. The beloved Downstairs crew is also back, with Jim Carter as Mr. Carson, Phyllis Logan as Mrs. Hughes, Robert James Collier as Thomas Barrow, Joanne Froggatt as Anna Bates, Brendan Coyle as John Bates, Kevin Doyle as Joseph Molesley, Michael Fox as Andrew Parker, Alan Leach as Tom Branson, Sophie McShera as Daisy Mason, Leslie Nichol as Mrs. Patmore, Paul Copley as Mr. Mason, and Douglas Reith as Lord Merton. You'll also see Dominic West returning as Guy Dexter, along with Penelope Wilton as the ever-sharp Isabel Crawley and Raquel Cassidy as Phyllis Baxter. And it's not just familiar faces, there are some exciting new additions too. Simon Russell Beale, Alessandro Nivola, Artie Frushan, Jolie Richardson, and Harry Haddon Payton are joining the lineup. Now, what's actually going to happen in Downton Abbey, the grand finale? Well, exact plot details are still being kept pretty secret, but we do know this film is a huge tribute to both the character of Violet Crawley and Dame Maggie Smith herself. Executive producer Gareth Neame has said that the storyline around Violet's loss is especially poignant. In fact, he pointed out that when you watch the cast mourn the Dowager, you're also seeing them mourn Maggie Smith, the heart of the show, which makes it feel even more genuine and emotional. Michelle Dockery even called it a beautiful film and described it as a real tribute to Maggie Smith. From the trailer, we've caught glimpses of what's coming: glamorous days at the races, a high society party, theater shows, and nights out. There's a striking moment where Lady Mary steps out in a stunning red silk dress, and Lady Edith tells her, "You'll be a sensation." The words, "the place we'll never forget," flash on screen with a sweeping shot of the Abbey, followed by "the family we'll never forget." One of the most touching scenes shows the Crawleys outside Downton, and Lord Grantham kisses his hand and presses it gently against the brickwork. Are they saying goodbye to the estate for good? We also know Dominic West and Robert James Collier are back. They rode off into the sunset together in the last film. Will we see their happily ever after, or will there be drama? What's certain is this is the end of the road. Hugh Bonneville confirmed it on iHeartRadio, saying the third film is very much the end of the story and a great sign-off for fans. So, based on what we know, there are a few possible storylines for the third Downton Abbey film, some more likely than others. Let's start with Mary's love life, which always seems to be at the mercy of real-life casting issues. Remember when Dan Stevens left, forcing Fellowes to kill off Matthew Crawley, her great love? Now, her second marriage to Henry Talbot is in trouble because Matthew Goode, who plays Henry, is so busy with other projects. He was completely missing from the second movie, which made it look like Mary and Henry were estranged. And honestly, why was he off racing cars again? That was one of the biggest letdowns of the last film, and now Fellowes has a chance to fix it. But how? If Goode can't, or won't come back for this film either, they can't just have Mary sighing over her absent husband again. If Henry isn't around, he's got to be written out somehow, either by divorce or, more dramatically, by death. As awful as it would be for Mary to lose another husband to a tragic end, it's probably cleaner story-wise than a messy divorce. Ideally, the film would pick up a few years later so Mary can be ready for a fresh start, maybe even with an old flame. Could this finally be the moment for Mary and Charles Blake to reunite? Of course, the last painful option for Mary would be to not end her second marriage. If Goode can be persuaded to return, the plot could focus on Mary and Henry finding their way back to each other. And hey, maybe an old beau like Blake, or even Sir Richard Carlisle, could give Henry a wake-up call and remind him just how much he stands to lose by neglecting his wife. Next up, there's the theory about Peter Coyle finally making an appearance. Remember him? He's Miss Baxter's shady old flame who talked her into stealing for him back in the day. What if he suddenly shows up at Downton? He'd probably stir the pot by being all charming and good-looking, making poor Molesley feel insecure and full of self-doubt. But of course, in true Downton fashion, the cad would eventually be exposed for who he really is, and then we'd get a sweet moment where Molesley realizes Miss Baxter was never even slightly tempted by Coyle, because in her eyes, Molesley is worth 100 of him. That would actually be really touching to see. That said, I'm not sure Fellowes would give Molesley a super dramatic storyline. Kevin Doyle is just too good at comedy, and they always seem to lean into his knack for awkward humor and lighthearted moments. Still, it'd be fun to see him in a mix of drama and comedy for once, don't you think? Now, let's talk about the Bates' future. Yes, I'm actually suggesting we give Mr. and Mrs. Bates some screen time again. Even though Bates can be a bit, well, gloomy, it's been weird seeing him pushed so far into the background in the last two films. Maybe it's time they got a storyline that's a little more grounded than endless murder accusations. Remember back in Season 2, when Bates wanted to open a small hotel with Anna? She seemed totally on board with the idea, but life just kept them tied to Downton. What if, in the third film, Bates finally wants to move on and make that dream happen, but Anna hesitates because she feels guilty about abandoning Mary? It would actually make for some nice drama. In the end, I could see Mary herself insisting that Anna go live her own life, freeing her from that sense of obligation. Realistically, though, we probably won't see these plot ideas, except maybe a fix for Mary's marriage situation. And honestly, I haven't even figured out how Uncle Harold, who we know is coming back, would fit into any of this. But hey, a fan can dream, right? Anyway, the big date to remember is 12th September 2025, when Downton Abbey, the grand finale, finally hits theaters. Can you believe it'll be nearly 7 years since the first film was announced back in 2018? Well, that's it for today. Let me know what you think in the comments section below. And don't forget to subscribe to our channel because we'll be covering more updates on this soon and other exciting upcoming movies and series. We'll see you next time.